Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends and welcome back to the path to the Vladivostok. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are on the Tier 6 Russian battleship, the Sinop. So with that being said, let's jump right into the commander. We're running Lev Galler with Andrew Cunningham and Azure Lane Scharnhorst as our commander inspirations. We have Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Drill Bits, Collective Labor, and Reaching Out XXL, with Will to Rebuild as our legendary perk. Let's check out the equipment. Aiming Systems Mod 1, Steering Gears Mod 2, and we run the Target Acquisition Mod, because that's all we can run. Now, steering gears on the Sinop, you could argue, isn't necessary, because most of the time you're going to be mostly bow in. You're not going to be doing a whole lot of dreadnought shuffling in this. You can, it's very capable of it, but some might go for either damage control or propulsion mod. So, just depends on what you prefer. Alright, let's look at the loadout. We have 4 damage controls, we have 2 heals, and 4 spotter planes. Finally get a spotter plane for the Russians. So, nice. Community contributor flag and the Type 2 camo for that incoming fire dispersion. So, yeah, let's look at the stats. 65,000 hit points with a 16% torp reduction. We have 406mm 45 caliber Model 1915s that you have 9 of. Reach out to 17.7 kilometers, reload in 33 seconds, and have a 180-degree turn time of 40 seconds. And this brings me to another reason. We're going to go over quite a few reasons why the Sinop just isn't better than the North Carolina. But we are going to be talking about the ship quite a bit. But just using the numbers since we're looking at them. It's got a slower reload. It's got a very big vulnerability, which I will tell you about when we get there. The turn time for the turrets are slow. Don't really care for that. And other than that, like, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't have the range that the North Carolina has. It's not as fast as the North Carolina. And, you know, overall, I just prefer the North Carolina. So, yeah, with that being said, let's get into the rest. HE shell maximum damage of 6,084 with a 41% chance to set fires. AP shell maximum damage is a respectable 14,245. Secondary armament, you have 130mm 55 caliber B2Us that you have 12 of that reach out to 4.7 kilometers and reload in 5 seconds. Then you have the secondaries 152mm 57 caliber Mark 17s that you have 12 of that reach out to 4.7 kilometers and reload in 8 seconds. And they have a maximum HE shell damage of 2,200 with a 12% chance to set fires, whereas the 130mm have a 1,900 maximum HE shell damage with an 8% chance to set fire. Just in case I forgot that, I think I did. Then you have the secondary 152mm 50 caliber Model 1908s that you have 4 of that reach out to 4.7 kilometers, reload in 8 seconds, and have a 2,200 maximum HE shell damage with a 12% chance of setting fires. AA defense. Not bad, but not great. 37mm 66Ks, you have 24 of those doing 97 damage per second, reaching out to 3.5 kilometers. 37mm 46Ks, you have 16 of those that do 49 damage per second and reach out to 3.5 kilometers. Then you have the 130mm 55 caliber B2Us that you have 12 of that do 74 damage per second and reach out to 5.2 kilometers. Maneuverability, maximum speed is 24.3 knots. The turning circle, not great at 960 meters. This is even worse than an Iowa, so keep that in mind. Rudder shift time, not bad though, at 10.3, means you're going to be able to shift pretty well. But again, I don't recommend getting the rear gun involved unless you know you're not going to take a hit from it. Concealment, 14.6 kilometer detectability by sea, which is slightly better than the Iowa. Detectability range by air is 11.6. Guaranteed detectability is always 2 with a 14.1 kilometer smoke firing penalty. Look at the armor. This is where the Sinop is both good and bad. So let's get into it. First of all, first thing you're going to notice, it still has the armor belt that goes all the way to the bow. It's 113 millimeters thick, meaning nobody's going through that when you're bow tanking. However, the keen among you may recognize that it still only has a 25 millimeter bow plating. So the upper and lower bow plating is 25 millimeters, meaning it can be overmatched by 15-inch guns and larger. And this is the problem with this ship. This is my biggest gripe with this ship. It isn't the guns, it isn't that it's not fast enough, it's not that it doesn't turn well, none of that. My biggest issue is this gigantic weakness of the bow. What do you mean, Spartan? Well, I mean that unlike, see, all of the other Tier 6 battleships pretty much have the same 25 millimeter bow, with a belt that goes all the way to the front for some of them, and you're used to being overmatched through the bow if anything with 15-inch guns and larger shoots you. What you're not used to getting, unless you're in a Nelson, is absolutely smashed through the bow because your citadel is actually exposed through the bow of the ship. Let's take a look at that, shall we? So, as you can see, you've got a massive raised citadel. Not uncommon for the rest of the Russian line, but every single time that you take a 15 or 16-inch round through the bow of this ship, you have the very large possibility of being smashed for citadels. I cannot tell you how many times in a Sinop or in a North Carolina, it doesn't matter. It's a newer ship, so not so much North Carolina, but like the Colorado and so on and so forth. Pretty much anything with 16-inch guns shoots the bow of this ship, they're getting a citadel. At least one, if not more. Like, this ship gets smashed through the bow. Which leads me to what I like to call lifting the skirt. Now, we've already talked about this multiple times in different ships, but you have to in this ship, especially against battleships. You have to lift the skirt. You've got to give them a little bit of that belt armor to shoot at. Get them hoping for that monster dev strike, only to shatter and ricochet off of that belt armor, which is actually pretty good. That's what you have to do. If you do not do that, if you go bow in and think that you're going to be okay, anybody with 15-inch guns is going to punch through that bow, and they will likely citadel you. You're going to be taking huge damage through the bow. So keep that in mind. Okay? Now, let's look at the overview. Superior AP penetration. Once again, this is the Russian perk. They have pretty fast velocity shells, so they get better penetration. Ironclad, above average armor thickness, greater resistance to all forms of armor penetration. Already talked about that. On-demand repairs. Damage control party reloads faster but has limited charges. Sinop, a high-speed battleship project armed with 406mm guns that were developed right before the beginning of World War I. Her advantages included well-designed armor protection and a strong secondary battery. Year of design was 1917. She was never built. But, especially if you're up against another Sinop, okay? I've seen a lot of people do it. I actually got into a fight with a Sinop earlier today where I put him through his paces. Like, he came in, bow onto me, and I literally ripped him apart. Got like 3 citadels off of him in a couple different salvos, and took all of his health and killed him. And he did basically nothing to me, solely because of the fact that I opened up the side and let people think that they're going to be able to get hits on me, rather than shooting my bow, which I know is weak. And this is all one of those things that you learn the more you play a game, is the little tips and tricks to make a ship work for you. So with that being said, let's take a look at her. For the first time, we don't have a bajillion guns, we only have 9. It's a more standard configuration for a battleship, but overall, not a bad looking ship at all. But not my favorite. Not a bad ship, but definitely not my favorite Tier 6. So with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Sea of Fortune in the Sinop, and we're going to have ourselves a fun game. Now, I'm not going to lie, I think I could have done better in this one. We're going to try to go over some of that as we get there. But, yeah, I honestly do not have a problem with the Sinop. I think it's a fine ship. I don't think it's particularly bad. Like I said, the biggest downfall for me is the weakness through the bow. Now, while other battleships share that weakness with the 25mm bow being able to be overmatched, most other battleships don't get citadeled through the bow. Sinop and Nelson being the outliers in that category. They absolutely love to get citadeled through the bow. And it's pretty... I don't know if it's a balancing feature, if that's what you would want to call it. But honestly, I know as a commander, when you're doing your business, you have to be extremely aware of who's shooting at you and where they're shooting, and forcing them to try to take shots that are better in your favor. Now, this could be something that you say for any ship, right? I mean, it sounds pretty standard, but in the Nelson and in the Sinop, you have to make them shoot where you want to shoot. Because if not, you're gonna have a real bad time. But that being said, we're going to be pretty decently aggressive in this one. And I'll point out when we get to the point where I think I should have done better. Which actually isn't that far into the match. But initially, I'm going to pull up here. I'm looking for crossfires when I push up towards the center on this map. This map is not a fun map to play, in my opinion. It's just not a very good one. People tend to run away from whatever side they spawn on, and it makes the games unpredictable, even though they are really predictable. Does that make sense? Like, the game itself, you can pretty much predict how many people are going to be on one side versus the other, but at the same time, you tend to run into issues with your teammates running away from a side that they should have the advantage on. But, you know, you can't force your teammates to play the way you want them to. But our Japanese destroyers pushed into Alpha early. Now, I'm going to get detected soon when I fire at a battleship, which I believe was it the Normandy? Is that who I shot at? I think there was a ship out here. Yeah, the Normandy. So, yeah. I take a shot here. I'm detected before I fire. That should have been, like, you know, #1 for telling me what's going on. Now, rear turret was the only one that made it over the island, unfortunately. And we get a pretty solid hit. We get one hit, full penetration, 4,700 damage. Can't argue with that. I should have said that I was spotted, and that maybe would have tipped off the destroyer that he's about to be run over. Because it's contested right now, and it's 2 German gunboats. So you don't want to be in this situation in a Japanese destroyer. You got 2 hydro destroyers right next to you. At least I'm fairly confident they have hydro. It's been a while since I've done Japanese destroyers. But, needless to say, he's in a bad way. He turns out, he tries to break contact, he drops his smoke, but he's already lost all of his hit points. And it's just a matter of time before they close the distance and are able to detect him again. And sure enough, Getty is wasting no time. He's rushing that smoke screen. He's trying to get up in there. Now, we're going to reach out and try to touch him here. And we do get a couple hits, or at least one hit. It's not going to help a whole lot, but we're trying. We're at least trying to help our destroyer out. He finally realizes that he's in trouble. He takes a shot at the guy. He's dropping torps at him, hoping to catch him. Getty is forced to turn away, and we are slowing down to try to take a shot at this guy before we get behind the island. And you can see he's slowing down. He lets the torps pass, and he speeds up and tries to smoke. We get the shot off before he disappears. We have 6,000 damage right now, and we get 4 penetrations, taking us up to 11,000. We just hit that man for 5,000 damage. He is not happy, okay? But unfortunately, he did manage to kill our Akatsuki. Now, I'm reading the situation. We've got 3 battleships, 4 battleships, 5 battleships spotted in the last known of Alpha, okay? That's a lot of firepower. Plus, you have 2 German destroyers over at Alpha. Now, obviously, we just smashed the Getty, so he's not got a lot of health left. But we know they're there, and we know that they have 5 battleships heading this direction to help them. So what I'm going to do is move into Bravo, start capping that. That'll give us the advantage of having 2 caps to 1, which is a huge advantage. Now, I'm located by the destroyer, but that's not really that big a deal to me. In order to get to me, they have to go through a very narrow corridor, and I'm going to be able to punch them. But what I'm looking for is either this North Carolina being, you know, broadside in a moment, or getting shots at some of the other battleships that are already broadside. Now, because I'm not spotted, I'm feeling pretty confident. So I go ahead and rush forward. Instead of waiting for the North Carolina, I push forward to try to get some crossfires on the other guys. And the whole premise of this push is to try to throw the enemy's game plan out the window. Because what happens in a lemming train is they are going to roll over anything that gets in their way. The only way that you stop a lemming train is to engage them from a direction that they are not ready. Okay? If a lemming train is coming at you, you're screwed. The only thing you can do is fight as long and as hard as you can and take as much off of them as possible. Delay the inevitable. Give your team time to get back. Now, we take a shot at this North Carolina, and it should have been a kill. Let's be real. That should have been a death strike. But, unfortunately, not enough. And I don't really want to sit here while I'm spotted with 3 battleships looking at my broadside in a Russian battleship. Am I right? So we're going to continue our push, albeit a little slower. We want to make sure that we've got this cap. We did get the solo cap on this, which is nice. You can see Getty is starting to think about coming around. We go ahead, we hit him with that little communication wheel, and everybody's looking to punch him in the mouth and get him off the board. And so we are going to try to finish this North Carolina off. Don't leave a guy alive. That's what I say. You don't want to let him live. And we citadel him again and finish him off. Now, fortunately for us, the destroyers managed to get rid of that destroyer that was pushing us. The Getty is dead. And now all I have to worry about on the backside here is the New Mexico. Now, I've got 2 choices. I sit here and wait for people to pass in the gap behind me, or I get aggressive and I push around the corner. I'm going to be aggressive and push around the corner. I'm assuming that destroyer has pushed out on our battleships over there, even though his last known looks to be coming my direction. I easily can take out this New Mexico. He's not a threat to me, really, unless I'm an idiot and go full broadside in front of him, and then I deserve what I get. But as long as I bow tank him, I shouldn't have to worry about it. He does not have 15-inch guns, and he does not have 16-inch guns, so I don't have to worry about him overmatching my bow. So we're going to move in, and we're going to try to finish this guy off quickly. The downside is it's actually going to be a little more difficult to get rid of this guy than I originally had planned. I thought that this was a given, like this is easy. Now, I get a little aggressive. Now, one thing I will say about this is it actually has a decent firing angle on the rear turret. And so we are going to fire the front guns. He is angled a little bit. We aim a little high. And we actually only get 1 hit. It's like, really, game? Really? You're going to do me that dirty? That was dirty, dirty. Like, that RNG made me cry, I think. I died a little bit inside, is what I'm saying. But, you know, you can only play with RNG for so long. RNGs will come calling. And if you play around, it's going to catch up to you. Just like that torpedo you're about to eat. Wait for it. There goes a good chunk. No. Is he going to take a second torpedo? Nope. He lets it go by. We actually knock out one of his guns. Again, not very good dispersion out of the front guns, which isn't common at these kinds of ranges. Usually at these sorts of ranges, the Russian battleships just dominate because they are tanky, and they also have the ability to just have railguns at closer ranges. I think it's inside 11 kilometers, the accuracy for Russian battleships goes up, or it gets better. I don't know if it goes up, it might go down. I don't know how you say it, but either way, it gets better inside 11 kilometers. But finally, we get more than 1 shell to hit him, and he goes down. And that unfortunately leaves us to go after these guys that have already been picked on a little bit and have lost quite a bit of their hit points. But, you know, we've done a really good job, but we haven't even lost a single hit point. Just let that register for a moment. We've not lost a single hit point. As ridiculous as that is. And it's not because we're not pushing, it's because we were playing smart. We got positioning, we got crossfires on guys who are not paying attention, and we were able to just absolutely wreck these guys. Now, obviously, with North Carolina there, he's got 16-inch guns. He's mostly broadside, and I feel pretty good about my chances, and we smash him for another Citadel. And right now, Peak is, like, giggling. He's like, I told you, North Carolina's too squishy. Clearly, the Sinop is better than the North Carolina. But I've already given my reasons why I prefer the North Carolina over the Sinop, and any ship sitting broadside is not long for this world when you've got 16-inch guns shooting at them. So, keep that in mind. It always comes down to the ship, okay? Or the captain, not the ship. It just went a full other direction. But it always comes down to the captain at the end of the day. Doesn't matter what ship you're in. The better captain in a 1v1 will generally win, okay? Unless something fluky happens, like you get detonated or something like that, which you can't really do anything about. It's a roll of the dice. But, as you can see, we're once again getting trolled. Not leading the North Carolina enough, because he's deceptive. It kind of reminds me of the Vanguard. If anybody remembers the old Vanguard, like back when it was a steaming pile of garbage, back before they buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed it, the Vanguard had a glitch where it didn't have, like, the water that you see going across the bow that changes depending on how fast the ship is moving. The Vanguard didn't have that. So it could be moving full throttle or half throttle or no throttle, and it would still look like it's sitting still, even though you can see it moving across the map. It's just hard to judge how fast somebody's moving without that water coming across the bow. And we finally get our Citadel again to finish him off. We're at 104,000 damage, a pretty solid game so far. And we're looking at this Queen Elizabeth now, who is doing his best to just avoid us. And again, we have yet to be shot at. Like, we haven't taken a single hit. But that's about to change, as the Queen Elizabeth, who has 15-inch guns, is about to take a shot at us. And he's probably thinking, I can do this. But then he has HE loaded. Like, really? Really? That's your plan? Gotcha. Okay, well, now we know that we have nothing to fear from this Queen Elizabeth. So now I don't even have to worry about doing a Dreadnought Shuffle. We're going to fire the rear gun here once we got it loaded. And that's going to be surprisingly effective if I remember correctly. And yeah, there you go. Solid hit. All three of those rounds hit the target from the rear gun. Go figure. And then he's opened up a little bit more. He shoots his rear turrets at us, and we fire the front guns at him. And let's see who wins. Was it really ever in doubt? And that is the ball game. Wasn't a super high damage game, but I really wanted to showcase this because it showcases the Sinop as something that a lot of people don't play the Sinop as somebody who is able to take advantage of crossfires, maybe not necessarily be the only thing the enemies are shooting at. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.